Hello and welcome back to another movie review. Tonight I saw Pacific Rim. Um, I both liked the movie, but at the same time disliked the movie, and unfortunately I'm leaning more towards the dislike. It's not that it was a bad movie. Visually it was beautiful. It's just, you could tell the script was kind of rushed. Didn't really get edited much, or maybe got edited too much, because they went really fast through a lot of parts and then spent way too long on other parts they could have shortened to fit more of the backstory in, I guess. So basically, it starts out, it explains, the things came from the ocean, we built giant robots to fight them. Then we go to the two brothers who are in the robot. During the battle, one of the brothers gets killed. The other brother pilots the robot back to shore before it collapses. Then it cuts to 5 years in the future, where the governments of the world say that they're going to shut down the giant robot program. They're going to build this giant wall to block off the ocean, thinking it's going to prevent the monsters from getting in. So then the general moves all of the remaining troops and any robots he can get his hands on to, I think it was Japan? Was it? Yeah, I think it was somewhere in Japan. So then he recruits the living brother, because he was helping build the wall now that he retired from giant robot fighting. So he recruits him back. He's like, the world's going to end soon. Would you rather be here building a wall or fighting? So he comes back. And because at first he's like, I can't do it again. I can't. Because the reason there's two pilots is because the workload of running the robot is too much for one person's brain to handle. So they split it between two people. They link the two people's minds, and then one hemisphere of each person's mind controls one half of the robot. So you work in sync, but the workload is shared between the two brains, if that explains it. But he's basically like, I was still attached to my brother when he died. I felt all the pain and everything. I can't have someone in my head again. I can't go through that again. Then all of a sudden he's like, yeah, fine, I'll come back. So that was kind of rushed over. They could have spent a little bit more time on him coming to terms with it, but they just rushed it to get on to the next part. So then we're back in Japan with all the other robots, and you find out that there's only 4 robots left, 4 or 5. I think it's 4, but it might be 5. So they've actually gotten their hands on his old robot and rebuilt it. So then they go through these tryouts to find his new partner, and there's this Japanese girl who's the head of recruiting, I guess, and she recruited all the candidates, but she kind of scoffs at their tryouts, and then he goes, well, maybe you can do better. So she goes, and then he goes, okay, I'm choosing her as my new partner. The general says no, because the general actually raised her since she was a child and doesn't want her to get hurt. So she's been training to be a pilot, but he doesn't think she's ready yet, so basically he's kind of holding her back. So it comes time for them to do their trial run, and the general says, go get suited up and you'll know who I've chosen to be your partner pretty soon. So it seems like it's not going to be the girl, and then a couple minutes later the general knocks on the girl's door and says, okay, you can do it. And it's like another thing that was kind of rushed over. It's like you spend all these time saying no, 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 you can't do it, and then all of a sudden, okay, you can do it. And it's just little things like that they rush through so quickly. It was really annoying. So then she gets suited up and gets into the robot with him, and as they're linking their minds, they both kind of drift off into their memories, which you have to try to avoid that. And he drifts off into a memory of remembering his brother getting killed, but then he's able to recover from it real quick. He's like, no, that was my fault, I slipped. let me regain my composure. So he gets back, but because of his slip, he knocked her out of sequence, so she got lost in a memory. So then he has to go like into the memory and try and pull her back. Then they had to be like 20 minutes on this girl's memory. And basically it was her, she's walking through the streets, everyone's dead, buildings are destroyed. Turns out the giant monster's right behind her, so she takes off running and hides in an alley. And then it's just her sitting there crying and whimpering behind this dumpster for like 20 minutes while he's trying to coach her back to reality. And then you hear one of the giant robots land and start fighting the monster, but you don't actually see it. And then you see the monster fall, and that's it. And then it cuts back to reality. She regained her composure finally. Or no, they shut down the robot, that's what it was. They managed to shut down the robot, so it kind of knocked her out of the memory and back to reality. So then the general's like, I made a mistake by putting her in there, I'll choose a different candidate. And he's like, no, it was my fault, I slipped out first, and then he kind of confronts the general because he's like, I saw the memory, I know what happened, and then it goes back to this little girl's memory. She's back behind the dumpster whimpering again, and then the giant robot lands, the monster falls, and she walks out of the alleyway, sees the giant robot, the top opens up, and the general steps out, and they spent like another 5 minutes on this girl's memory. This all could have been wrapped up a lot quicker. Another thing is, I really didn't see, there wasn't much of the robot fighting, and I'll get into this more a little bit later, but for this particular instance, they spend 20 minutes on this girl's memory, and they never show the giant robot fighting the monster, which is what this movie is supposed to be about. They just kind of, I know it's supposed to be her vision from her perspective, what she saw, what she remembers, but from a movie standpoint, they could have showed the battle. Even though it was over rather quickly, it still would have been better than just seeing her whimpering behind this trash can. Honestly, it looked like she was taking a shit on the ground. That's how bad it looked. So they wasted a lot of time on that. They could have showed another robot fight. So then we cut back, and their team has been grounded. But at this point, 2 of the monsters come through. So they send the other 3 robots out. Only 2 of them are supposed to engage. The other one's supposed to hang back because the general has this plan to use that one to drop a nuclear device into the rift that the monsters are coming through. So he says, stay back, don't engage unless you have to. So the first robot goes out. It starts fighting and ends up getting taken out pretty quickly. So it's like maybe a 2-3 minute fight sequence, and then boom, the robot's dead. So the other robot, the second one, is, kind of flexing its muscles like, okay, I'm going to go kick your ass for destroying my friend. It goes out, and right as it's about to attack, the second monster that it seems to have forgotten about jumps on its back, throws it down, it gets back up, and then the thing spits acid in its face, so it melts the whole top. It jumps on it again, pushes it underwater, and basically destroys it. So the second one went down almost without a fight. So the third robot's finally like, okay, we're going to engage now, and then it sends out this electromagnetic pulse that wipes out everything. The robot's basically just sitting there useless. So then the monster basically sits there and like walks around the remaining robot looking at it and like tapping it, but doesn't destroy it. Okay, you know this thing's a threat, you were just fighting it, you just fought 2 other ones, why are you going to leave it standing? If it's disabled, destroy it. Okay, maybe the monsters aren't that smart. So finally, the 2 pilots get out and they shoot flare guns at the monster, so now the monster's finally going to destroy them, and that's when the general decides to send in the grounded team. So the robot lands, it comes up and kicks the monster's ass. Then it goes after the second monster, kicks that one's ass, and then what else happened? Yeah, so basically, like I said, they don't spend much time on the fighting robots other than the main robot. I would have liked to have seen some of the others fight a little bit longer than the 2-minute match that they had before they got destroyed. Uh, so then, after the battle, they recover the robots back to the base. Meanwhile, there's this subplot of this doctor who's trying to to link his brain with one of the dead monster's brains. So he has to go and find Ron Perlman's character, who's a black market dealer who collects dead monster parts and resells them. Because apparently they're worth different parts of the monsters are worth a lot of money. Apparently, so there's this subplot back and forth with them, which was another waste of time. It could have been wrapped up a lot quicker. And for as long as it took, Ron Perlman's character really did nothing. He could have been a lot more intricate into the plot, especially for as long as they spent on him. That was like another 30 minutes of the movie. So then, the last two robots, the one that got disabled is back online now, and the main robot. So they're like, okay, we're gonna go on the bomb run now. But one of the pilots of the second robot broke his arm during the battle, so he can't pilot. So then the general steps in. He's going to pilot, but there's another subplot where he's sick from piloting the robot by himself originally, back when he saved the little girl. So they told him if he ever got back into a robot, it would kill him. But he says, I'm going to die anyway. I'd rather go out fighting and trying to stop this than just sitting back and letting it happen. So he takes over piloting the second robot with the other pilot. The guy and the girl pilot the main robot. They go underwater to do the bomb run. Two more monsters come through. They find out that the bomb run they were going to do is not going to work, so they come up with a secondary plan. But something happens where the main robot's not able to... Oh, the bomb release mechanism fails, so it's like strapped to the robot and they can't get it off. So they tell the other crew, take your robot in. Since it's nuclear powered, it's basically the same as a bomb. Take it in. Once you have it into the rift and it's on the other side, eject from use your escape pods, eject back, detonate the robot, and because we can't do it. So then the other pilot that's in there with him, with the general, says, well, what are we supposed to do? Just stand here? He goes, no, we're going to clear a path for him. And they detonate the bomb that's on their back, basically killing themselves. But they take out the monsters that are there. So then the main robot gets through the rift, detonates, the two pilots eject, they make it back through the little rift thing before the detonation. And that's basically the end of the movie. They get rescued. The pods surface in the ocean. They get rescued. That's it. Credits roll. Nothing. After the first part of the credits roll, you find out that, because at one point you think that Ron Perlman's character died, but then you find out that he's still alive in a little clip that's after the first part of the credits. Then it goes back to the rest of the credits, and that's the end of the movie. Like I said, really, visually it looked pretty, but that's not enough to save it for me. The story was way rushed, not really well thought out or plotted out in a lot of parts. Like I said, the robot fights were too short. All the monsters actually looked alike. They had slight differences. Like one had like a blade head, another one was fat, another one had wings. But other than that, they looked exactly the same. It got hard to even tell them apart at one point. So the robot fights were really short. Other than the main robot, I would like to have seen some of the others and what they could do. They spent way too long on the little girl's backstory. They spent way too long with the Ron Perlman stuff, and they didn't use Ron Perlman to their full potential. I mean, they could have done a lot more with that. Just overall, the script and timing was a mess. As far as a star rating, the visuals aren't going to save this one much. If it wasn't for the visuals, I'd probably give it a 2 for how bad the script was and how poorly it was timed out and everything. But visually adds a little bit back to it, so I'm going to throw it at a 2.5. someone told me they're going to do a sequel to this at some point, or a prequel or something, to kind of explain more of the story that they skipped over. Really, you should have spent more time in this movie doing that, but hopefully whatever sequel or prequel they're planning is better. Hopefully they learn from their mistakes. Don't rush these movies out. Put a little bit of plot into them. Put a little time and thought into them. So yeah, that's a 2.5 at best. Like I said, if you can get it cheap, like on Netflix, or when it comes out on Redbox or HBO or something, check it out. I don't think it's worth a full rental price. Definitely not worth a full... Well, to see it in the theater on the big screen visually is pretty, so it might be worth a matinee ticket price, but not a regular ticket price. So yeah, that's basically it for this review. Rambled on for quite a bit. I know I said I was going to try and start keeping these short. But that was basically the whole movie. I just told it to you. Not really much point in seeing it, except if you want to see something that looks pretty. So yeah, not sure how I'm going to get around to seeing next. Not sure what my schedule is for this week yet. But I'll get around to seeing something, and I'll report back to you when I do. As usual, thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the movies.